All right, welcome back to C Programming Skills using Replit. I'm Norman McIntyre. Let's get started. So our focus here is the CLI intro. CLI stands for Command Line Interface. We've used the command line a few times in some of the previous videos. Let's look at it a little closer. So again, I'm in my same project that we've been using throughout these videos. We've had this single project, says hello world. And I want to focus on the console, which is this side of the screen. And of course, we know by default when you click on Run, some commands are executed. And actually what happens, it executes the compiler command, and then it runs your program. And of course, we see the output. I want to introduce, though, a little more related to the console and help you understand some more concepts. First, if I type clear, I can clear the console. That's kind of nice. When you've done some things, you just want to clear everything out, do a clear. Now, probably the other point I want to make from the very beginning is if you do a uname, uname stands for Unix name, and the name of this system is Linux. So uname originally, back long ago, there was something called Unix, and you could see the type of Unix you have. Of course, in this case, we're using an operating system called Linux. Linux is very, very popular. In fact, Linux operating system was written in C, in the same language that you're studying here. So we're running on a Linux system. A very common command is ls to list the files that are in your directory. By directory, if I do a pwd for print working directory, it shows me where I'm at in the directory structure. So we see we're under home, runner, CSP, UR, Replit, intro. So this is where our project is. And again, ls is list the files. Now what I'm going to do is, we know from earlier in the video, if I do a file command, file star, it will look at each file in your directory and report on the type of file it is. So we see main is a executable file. So this is what it actually executes. And of course our main.c is our C source code. The C source code that we write, in fact that's the code over here, it uses the ASCII character set, the American Standard Code for Information Interchange. That's the type of text this is. Now let's do a few things. Let's first I'll clear my screen. I'll do an ls for list the directory, and I'm going to do a rm. Rm stands for remove. I'm going to remove the main. So I've removed that. And in fact, if I do a ls now, notice I've just got a single file. We know if I say the file command, it tells us it's our C source code. If I was on a console without this benefit of this graphical editor, I could say cat, which stands for concatenate, main.c. And notice it shows our code there. That's our source code. Now, we know that as a software developer, you'll write the source code and it will get compiled. In fact, let me clear my screen. So clear my screen. And again, ls, I just have a main.c. Let me say clang, which is the name of the compiler, clang on main.c. Now, when I said clang main.c, notice we didn't get any output, but if I do an ls, we see I've got a file called a.out. Now, a.out is the default file name that a compiler will give you on a Linux system. Long ago, it stood for assembler output. Right now, just consider it a.out, and in fact, we can run that. We can say /a.out, and there's our code. So by default, if you just bring up the compiler and say compile this code, it'll compile it, it'll link it, and it'll provide the output in this executable file called a.out. In fact, if you wanted to prove it was an executable file, just say file a.out, and we see sure enough it's an executable. Now, we can also do this. We could say clang -o for output main. In fact, let me even do this. Let me do an ls. So list what's there. Let's do a remove on a.out. Let's clear our screen. Now remember, you should be following along. And if I'm going too fast, you can always pause the video. If I'm going too slow, you can speed it up. That's the great thing about watching the video. So we've got an ls. We've just got a single source file. Again, file main.c. This is our C source. I can cat, that is concatenate it out. Let me compile it, clang, but this time -o. So -o says put the output in this file. We'll put it in main, and what file do you want to compile? Main.c. Press enter, and now when I do an ls, sure enough, notice we have this main, and in fact I can do /main, and it runs that program. Now it turns out many times you will write scripts and have commands that execute these commands in an automated manner to build your code and do other things. And here I'm showing you some of the commands that are available. Some of the ones we'll use as we go through and use this command line interface. Turns out there are many other commands that are available, but this is again a Linux system, and if you want to find out additional Linux commands, you can actually take a whole course just on seeing the Linux commands. By the way, if I say clang by itself and press enter, notice it says error, no input files. So clang is actually looking for some input files, just like when we say clang main.c. Now it's happy because it saw that and it compiled it for us. Okay, as always, make sure you can execute these same commands. Thank you again for making it this far. Video by video, step by step, you're making more progress in mastering your C skills. There's much more to come. I'll see you in the next video. I'm Norman McIntyre. Thanks as always for watching.